Namandats, 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 namandats. 가건철세간 이시무조도 시간 후만석 세후조쇼각 가오무려고 의다이세슈 의사이쇼빈그 세후조쇼각 가시조분도 묘쇼조지법 극혐이쇼멈 세후조쇼각 니역진쇼넨 조회슈번교 시그무조도 이쇼텐닌시 진리기엔다이코 으쇼무사이도 쇼조삼금요 고사이슈야근한 가이히지에겐 메시콘모암 에소크쇼아크로 쯔닷젠슈몬 고소조만석 이요로지법 니치간슈즈기 덴콘프겐 이슈카이홀소 고세크도크호 조다이슈주 세포시시쿠 그요이사이붓 그소크슈토크혼 간내신조만 덕의삼가요 녀붓무게치 쯔닷미후쇼 간가크에릭 도시사이쇼손 시간야코카 다이세노칸도 고쿠쇼텐닌 도우치묘케 나만다부 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 간니시쿠도쿠 벼 lai Doi hot bo dai shin o jo u an da ko. Namandats, 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 namandats. Please join me in Gasho. Namandats, namandats. Pure Shinjin is Shinjin that actualizes Amida's profound and vast benefiting of others. It arises from the vow of birth through the Nembutsu, also known as the vow of sincere mind and entrusting. It may further be called the vow of Shinjin, which is Amida's directing virtue for our going forth. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone. I will admit that saying good morning when we do these YouTube Sunday services doesn't sound as fulfilling as when I do good morning when we are able to do the services in person. Because usually when I say good morning, everyone, I hear good morning, sensei, coming back. And I've gotten used to hearing that now, and it's a very wonderful feeling. But regardless, I'm glad that you are all here present today on our June 19th Sunday service, and happy Juneteenth as well. Today, for our service, I would like to talk about the concept of entrusting or entrusting heart. This is commonly known in Jodo Shinshu as Shinjin. Now, this, of course, has been translated as faith before, but I know that that word faith has some baggage to it, as well as some folks not liking it. But I would like to talk just a little bit about Shinjin. So from a Jodo Shinshu doctrinal standpoint, we know that Shinjin is the true cause of our birth in the Pure Land. It is our entrusting to Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion that comes from the hard working of the 18th vow of Amida Buddha's crossing of 10 kalpas, crossing from long multitudes of time of hard practice to create the Pure Land for us and for us to be born into. It is Shinjin that gets us there. So sometimes we talk about Namo Amida Butsu, right? When we all put our hands together and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Sometimes, depending on which temple you go to, you'll hear it being chanted maybe 3 times or maybe even once, and then there's just this continuous Namo Amida Butsu that follows. Sometimes if you go to Japan and you go to places like our head temple of Nishi Honganji, you will see Nembutsu practitioners inside the temple just randomly shouting, Namandaps, Namandaps, Namandaps. Here in the United States, there definitely seems to be more prompting of Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So you're all waiting for me to put my hands together and say it. And that's okay, because again, Japan has had this sect of Buddhism now for over 800 years. And actually, that's just Shinran Shonin's school. There were schools of Pure Land Buddhism before that in Japan. But the point is that Japan has had kind of a head start on us in terms of having a Pure Land Jodo Shinshu or Amida Buddha centered Buddhism inside the country to kind of naturalize it within the followers there. So for us here in the United States, it might take just a little bit longer before we come inside and we can just start saying Nam Mandabs, Nam Mandabs, Nam Mandabs. Now that's not to say that some of you don't do this, right? But again, what is this Namo Amida Butsu and what does Shinjin have to do with it? Well, to put it very simply, very, very simply, it is our trust in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. It's actually not just trusting, but it's also, in a sense, giving up our sense of self-power that we ourselves, myself, Reverend Tadao, through my own practice, can attain the level of enlightenment that Amida Buddha can. The truth and the reality is I cannot, for I do not have the karmic circumstances, nor am I have the concentration or the level of commitment that Bodhisattva Dharmakara had to become Amida Buddha. And so for that purpose, there is our sect of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism that, once again, teaches that we don't need to do this on our own. In fact, we cannot, not just that we don't need to do this on our own, but we can't do it on our own. We are incapable of reaching this level of enlightenment by ourselves. We must rely on the assistance and the working of the Dharma. And this is what we put our trust in. So this is our trust in the Buddhist teaching. This is our trust in Namo Amida Butsu. This is our trust in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Realizing that this trust and that this ultimate practice doesn't come from inside ourselves, but comes from other power. Okay, so this is why Shinjin is so important, and this is Shinjin. Now, the big question for all of us is, well, do I have Shinjin, or do I have that trust? Do I have this level of trust, and do I completely surrender my ego to Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion? Well, the answer to this question is I don't know. And I can't answer that question for you all who are watching. And this is a personal journey for us to travel inside ourselves, to really understand what Shinran was talking about and what the followers of the Nembutsu really need to encounter. You know, there are things that we do sometimes to calm ourselves, to center ourselves, like sitting in meditation. Some Buddhists choose to sit in meditation. And there are the ways that sometimes Buddhism is often depicted here in the United States is that in order to be this, or to have this serene sense of Dharma, to have this serene sense of awakening or enlightenment, we have to do all of these hard practices like becoming a vegetarian or sitting in meditation for hours on end or chanting this mantra again and again and again. Our sect of Buddhism, of Jodo Shinshu, says differently. Says all you need to do is say Namo Amida Butsu, because that comes from all of those hard practices tenfold from Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, from Amida Buddha's working. All of that, all of the hard practice that we think that we have to do has, in a sense, already been done, has already been completed for us. So let me bring this back to earth for just a second and do a real life example here. Now, I'm certain that the vast majority of you here have a doctor that you all trust. Correct? You all have a doctor or a general practitioner or your main physician or primary care physician, right? Who you go to on a yearly or probably twice a year basis to check in, and your doctor will get to know you. They sort of develop a relationship with you, and they look you over. They do all those things, take your blood pressure. They listen to your heart. They listen to you breathe. They look at all those, they look inside your ears sometimes, and they make sure that everything is in working order. Then, of course, they ask you certain questions about how you're feeling, and they ask you, how often do you exercise? And then depending on where you are on that, right, they'll tell you, give you advice about that. Sometimes they will also, in a sense, tell you like, okay, maybe you should stop eating this type of food. Maybe you should hold off on that second helping of rice, which I'm definitely guilty of. And they'll give you some really good advice on, how you can better your health and how to keep you healthy and to keep your body functioning in a wonderful way. So I've heard stories and have actually watched some television shows as well. So my knowledge of this is not totally based in reality, but other times it has been. But sometimes I hear stories about doctors who have these patients who think they know more than they do, despite the patients having never been to medical school, right? And so, you'll hear these stories of these patients going, well, doctor, I've heard about this particular treatment. What about this? And if you haven't been to medical school, I kind of would assume that you would trust your doctor to give you the best advice. Sometimes, and this doesn't mean that all doctors are perfect or that, that they're infallible, but at the same time, they also have more training and more experience than you do in terms of the medical field. So, in a sense, in some ways, you should actually trust that the advice that your doctor is giving you is the best advice that they can think of for you. Yes, it's true, you have a right to get a second opinion sometimes, but ultimately, they're the ones who went to medical school. You didn't. Now, doctors being treated, or doctors going into the hospital for their own treatment, that's a whole other Dharma talk that I won't get into. But it seems actually very similar to ministers who minister to other ministers, right? There is a whole other Dharma talk for that. But in reality, right, what we're talking about here is trust in the Buddha's teaching, trust in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. Now, a lot of us probably here are seasoned Buddhists. We've probably been coming to this temple for a while. We probably have been going to seminars or sometimes retreats. And this is great and this is wonderful. Some of us might even have the privilege of being ordained. Wonderful, and more power to you. And I congratulate you. I am very amazed by members who have probably perfect attendance, who have attended every service, and it's just a wonderful achievement. However, sometimes there is a little bit of a danger to this, because then what ends up happening is that the members who have been coming for a long, long time, and again, meaning no disrespect to them or meaning no disrespect to members who come for long amounts of time, right? Sometimes we hear of these members who have this perception that they know more about Buddhism than the minister who comes in. And in some ways they may, in some ways they might. They might have more book knowledge, or they may have had the time to read more books or delve deeper into the teachings. But at the same time, there's also this understanding that maybe the minister or the teacher, the Buddhist teacher, might know a little bit more than you. And myself, as a Jodo Shinshu priest, must also fully accept that, and must also fully realize that maybe the member is right. Maybe the member does actually know more. My first instinct should be, well, I'm the minister, they're the member, I'm right, they're wrong, right? That's bombu. That is my blind passion. That is my ego. That is my arrogance. That is my self-power mind. And the same thing with the member. The member might say, oh, look at this young minister trying to talk about life and lessons. I'm in my 60s or 70s, and I probably know more about life than this young minister, this young whippersnapper minister knows. Right? We probably have all had these thoughts before. I know I've had these thoughts. I know probably many of the folks watching have had these thoughts, and it's all of our egos seeming to compete with each other, right? But in the end, it is the trust that we have in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. It is the trust of ultimate reality, that there is this ultimate reality that, in a sense, teaches us who we are and the realities of non-self. And this is the whole reason why Amida Buddha's Pure Land exists. This is the whole reason why we take refuge in the Nembutsu. All of us have these thoughts that arise of I'm better, or this person's not as good, or I'm good, you're bad, or these self-calculating judgments. I know more than you do. We all have these thoughts. And yet, within this realm of samsara, of egos battling egos, Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion still shines to us and teaches us the truth of the Dharma, teaches us the ultimate truth of no self, and of course that enlightenment cannot be done on our own. So with that in mind, this is why we place our hands together. Sometimes we come to this point of realizing how helpless we are at times in this battle of wits, in this battle of egos. And once we come to this conclusion, we put our hands together and say, Namo Amida Butsu. Now, one of the main reasons why I am choosing to talk about this during this time is, again, we are in June and we are sort of in graduation mode. So for a lot of our graduating seniors, whether they be in high school, college, or the graduates of graduate school, right? This is not to say that you haven't achieved something wonderful. This is not to say that you didn't work really hard, and that you, and it's not to say that you don't deserve this. You absolutely deserve your diploma and to wear the cap and gown and to throw your hats in the air and to celebrate such a wonderful achievement. And your parents definitely are entitled to the pride that they feel when they see you walk when you do that famous graduation walk to pomp and circumstance. These are all things that need to be observed and things that need to be felt from time to time. But I'm also advising all graduating seniors or graduating graduate students that our lives learning and trusting in the Buddha's teaching has not yet been completed. And this is a life journey that will go throughout our entire lives. This is something that we must wrestle with and look into our entire lives. Do I trust in the Buddha's teaching? Do I trust in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion? Do I often catch myself finding that, ooh, I can just do this by myself, or I can just, I'm not afraid of life, I'm just gonna do things by myself and just rely on my own self, right? Do we all fall into that category, or do we all fall into that state of mind? Of course we do from time to time, which is all right, because then Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion gently reminds us, whether it be through various acts of skillful means, that we are not alone and that we don't have to face these challenges on our own. The challenges of our ego, the challenges of even our societal complications. We don't have to face these things on our own. We might have to work with people, and we might have to make compromises, and we might have to really, in a sense, at the end, let go or redefine something that we're holding so hard with our heads. And yet, once we are able to do that, we realize that this is an act of skillful means. This is an act of wisdom and compassion from Amida Buddha. So I congratulate all of you graduates again, and really ask yourselves about, what does it mean to entrust in the Buddha's teaching? What does it mean to have trust? Because without trust, to me, there really isn't that much, life can't be very good, or life can't be very happy. So I sincerely hope that you think about this a little bit deeply, and that we delve into this concept of shinjin, or entrusting in Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. So I thank you all for joining us today at our June 19th Sunday service on YouTube. I sincerely look forward to next weekend when we are able to fill the Hondo again with smiling faces. So with that in mind, I would like all of you to please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam mandaps, nam mandaps, nam mandaps, nam mandaps.